Jared here, recapping yesterday's community online support call. Two people showed up, two brave people who were willing to share their struggles and who walked away with some of what I feel is the very important foundation of healing from binge eating. And I'm talking about being able to learn from your binges instead of being able to instead of getting caught in the shame and the pain of a binge and just beating yourself up. Why did you do that? Why does this always happen? Like, you know, that type of thinking. So we have learning from it, which we'll kind of go into, and then where someone started out yesterday, or rather Sunday, someone started off telling about a binge, and they told their story, and then that was a check-in. So we start off with check-ins in these meetings, and the other person checked in, and they mentioned that they did overeat, but that this time, because they'd been journaling, they were able to kind of it was almost like they could see their binge happening in slow motion. They could see the hunger building up. They could feel the emotional pressure, sort of. And they were like, oh, I'm about to binge right now, aren't I? And it was like they were a zombie almost, and they went to go get food, and they ate it, and they didn't eat as much. They still overate, but they were kind of in this, half being taken over by the binge, and then the other half was, just kind of watching it and aware. And so this person then started, after they described their experiences, they started sharing about what they learned from their binge. Just naturally, unprompted. They said, yeah, so it was really interesting. I saw that I was hungry, so, that was one thing I need to work on. And then I saw that all this pressure was building up, so I needed some way to release the pressure. And so they were saying they had all these ideas on what they could do differently next time. What they could do differently next time. So that just really, I was so happy to see that mentality. What could they do differently next time? And so I kind of pivoted it around back to the first woman and asked her kind of well, what comes up for you when you think about learning from binges? And I really appreciated her response because she brought up the shame. And the shame is what holds people back, and the pain of the shame. When she first started describing how she could learn from her binge, from what I remember, it was something like, this always happens. I can't do it. And I think we were able to kind of peel back the layers and kind of name that as shame, right? We kind of named that thought pattern as shame, and we were able to see that, what are you feeling underneath that shame, right? What's driving that shame? And so this is where things kind of got really practical. She was able to kind of sit with that pain, and we even kind of remembered some sort of memory around the shame, so that she could understand it and put it together. And what happened was, there was at some point where she couldn't tolerate these feelings. She was putting words to the shame and the pain, and she said, this is too much, and it was getting escalating. She was saying, oh yeah, my parents and this pain, and it's and I just want to binge right now. And so when she got into pain, the energy of it escalated. It made her panic. It made her frightened. The energy of pain kind of spiraled upward out of control. So what we kind of did was we worked on, hey, here's some pain right now. How can you self-soothe that pain? How can you bring down those pain levels so that instead of worrying and escalating the pain and getting freaked out, how can you just stay with this baseline pain? And she was able to put her hand on her heart. She was able to imagine her inner child, right? That's what we do here at Eating Enlightenment, a big way that's kind of new for a lot of people when they start working with their emotions, is we create stories and images and metaphors in our head. We have images in our head. We have characters, right? Because that's our emotional brain. Our emotional brain is not logical, right? Our emotional brain is emotional, story driven. So we got to have characters, and they got to say things to each other. They got to, say things to each other. So she had an image of her child in her pain, and she was able to kind of say stuff, and then the pain kind of stayed the same. And when the pain stayed the same, then she didn't fall into shame, and we could cycle back around and say, what did you learn? What can you learn from this binge? And it was a beautiful moment for me. It was here's what it looked like. She was looking. she was thinking creatively, reflexively, backwards. She was thinking backwards. What can I learn from the binge? Instead of the voice being, this always happens, I can't do anything about it, like you always, instead of that, it was, what can I learn? And kind of the only thing her takeaway was that she could see that binging helped cover up her loneliness. So she could see that, and that was something she learned more clearly by reflecting on her experience. So she said, well, I think I see how the food helps cover up my loneliness. And this right here, I mean, this sounds small, but this is a huge shift, and you need it as well. If you want to be free from binging, you have to learn from your binges, because this is a skill, right? This is a skill. This is a skill. So you gotta practice. You gotta refine. You gotta learn. You gotta learn. You gotta become I always like saying people like, you gotta become either an expert samurai, right, where there's discipline, but you also gotta become an expert painter. You gotta learn to be creative. You need to be able to see, like a painter, right? They make a painting, they make some mistakes. They say, oh, when I did that this time, then that looked that way. So next time I paint, I better do it this way, right? And so the same thing with binging. Oh, I didn't see the hunger. I didn't see the loneliness. Next time, I better learn to do it a little bit differently. And this way you keep on practicing. You keep on improving. Your binges are your teachers. If you can't see your binges as your teachers, if you can't learn from them, then you're gonna be stuck. And I think the important takeaway is that sometimes you can be blocked from learning from your binges because the shame one gets in the way, that narrative. So how can we get out of that shame and into the body? But even then, when you get into the body and there's that pain, how can we not be overwhelmed by that pain? How can we kind of self-soothe that pain? And if we can self-soothe that pain, then the shame kind of isn't there as much. We can kind of, we can reflect. We can actually learn from the binges. So those two blockages kind of get in the way. And it's important to just be aware of those blockages, because on paper it sounds easy. Oh, learn from your binges. It kind of makes sense and everything. But then when we actually try to do it, it's like you just get flooded with shame. And we want to work on that flooded feeling. Like if you get flooded by shame, one, show up to a support call. That's something we can work on live. There's like live coaching there and stuff. So yeah, this is my recap, and that's what happened. And I'm having a blast. So I just wanted to thank everyone for watching these, and feel free to reach out. The link for the community will be down below, and hope you enjoy and have a good one. Okay, namaste.